fuck Game of Thrones. You know? Fuck Game of Thrones. I'm going to say it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to LRM Ranks It, the show where we like to rank our favorite movies, video games, TV shows, things like that. We pick our favorites, we put them in an order, and then we tell you. And of course, my opinion is the greatest and most important opinion, but just for some contrast, I have to have some guests on, and today I am joined by none other than Nick Dahl. What's up, Nick?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's been a little bit since me and you recorded an episode. Steven Spielberg, I think, was the last one that me and you did together.
Wow.
And you and Jemmer have had a few pop up on the site since then. Kind of like your joke about me being fired. Funny thing is this is your last episode. You just don't know about it.
Oh.
No, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today, we're actually going to be talking about our favorite TV dramas. And now that does include dramas from streaming services like Netflix and Hulu. And we didn't really put a date limit on this. This goes all the way back to the beginning of TV if you wanted to go that far back. But yeah, we're going to be talking about our favorite dramas. No specific genre either. Just literally your favorite dramas where drama and story are the main elements. Comedy can be in there, but it's not the main purpose. So you're not talking your shows like Shameless or Californication, which are great shows, but those are more along the lines of comedies than dramas, even though they have a lot of drama elements to them. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And let's go ahead and get right into it. Nick, what is your fifth favorite TV drama?
Narcos on Netflix. I'm going to differentiate since I haven't seen Narcos Mexico and just talk about Narcos because they actually did reclassify them as two different shows. Narcos is an interesting mix of like actual drama that's scripted, and then for some reason there's kind of a narrator who's one of the characters filling in historical parts. So at times it feels like a History Channel show, but it never is really. It's about, the first two seasons are about catching Pablo Escobar, and then the third is about a different cartel that grew up after Pablo Escobar was gone. It's what introduced me to Pedro Pascal and Boyd Holbrook, two actors who I enjoy quite a bit today. And no, I don't know, it's one of the ones you have to pay full attention to, because most of it's in Spanish, so you're reading a lot. But yeah, that's my number 5.
I've not seen that one, actually. I've seen it, what's the word I'm looking for? Advertised or pushed or whatever by Netflix all the time. And I get into some crime dramas and things like that. I've actually got sort of a crime drama on my list that we'll get to a little bit later.
Nice.
And but that's not one that I've seen, but you're recommending it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm in the middle of Narcos Mexico, even though I'm not counting that. But yeah, I recommend all of it so far.
Okay. Great stuff. Well, my number 5 actually comes from way back, started in the 90s. And it's a show I used to really enjoy watching, believe it or not, with my mother. She kind of got me into it. And it's a little out there for our audience, or a little out of place, but it's ER. I loved ER growing up in the 90s. I watched the hell out of it. I had a time period where I was away from home for about a year, and I had a roommate, and we would, after work, watch ER, literally like binge watching ER in the early 2000s, and it was a good time. And I love the ER. Written, a lot of people don't know, created by Michael Crichton, who actually did go to medical school. Yes, did actually go to medical school, but never practiced medicine. And he had some assistants writing the shows. He actually did the first thing he was trying to do was actually a movie. And that basically became the pilot episode. I love the characters of Dr. Green, who didn't like Noah Wiley's Dr. Carter. I swear to God, if somebody came in missing a head, Dr. Carter could reattach it, trained by the great Dr. Benton. And I did. I loved the ER. It was over dramatic sometimes when you're getting like a grenade launcher was accidentally shot off in the ER one episode. I mean, it gets over the top, but it was great. I actually got my wife into it last year, and I think she watched through all 15 seasons. But yeah, ER, that's my number 5. A lot of good movies right there.
It did lead to our best Batman, so it does have geek cred in that way.
George Clooney.
Yeah.
Oh
Because I've
man,
never really
George
seen
Clooney.
it, and nothing on. I have, in fact, I never saw a drama until 24. So there's
Okay.
really nothing on my list before the year 2000, if not even 2010. So
Yeah. No, I believe his character was Ross or something like that on ER. And I'm having a Dr. Ross, I think was his last name. Doug Ross. There it is. Yep, Doug Ross, George Clooney. It's a great show. Check it out sometime, man. I think it's on Hulu, so you can binge watch it. It's not too bad. Little 90s nostalgia in there. So go
sweet.
ahead and continue on with your number 4.
My number 4 is one you probably no one has ever heard of. It's Halt and Catch Fire. Sometimes you have to say the title slowly because the people don't even understand it. It was on AMC. It was an overlooked AMC show because it was around the same time Breaking Bad was ending. Now all on Netflix, so I highly recommend it. It's the best way to describe it, and this is a weird way to describe it. It's Mad Men meets Silicon Valley. It has kind of the story elements of Silicon Valley, only it's set in the 80s, and predominantly featured is Lee Pace as a very Don Draper type character. You know, he's an asshole, he's charming.
Yeah.
And then it deals with women's issues throughout getting into the industry, as well as just like building some of the first computers, like designing the first online like experience. And yeah, it's just an incredibly emotional series with shocks and turns that you don't expect, even though it's very strictly a drama. It doesn't really get into violence like Breaking Bad or Narcos or whatever.
Does it have historical elements? Like, is it talking about IBM and Apple?
Exactly.
Or
One of them used to work for
Microsoft?
IBM. They're at
Okay.
CSC one year, and they see the first Apple computer, and they're at a convention one year and see the first Nintendo and stuff. So even though their stuff is all fictional, all the real companies are there, and the real innovations.
Interesting.
So it's really fun to kind of watch the history of computers, but then you also have the drama of the characters, which is even more important.
Very cool. I might actually have to check that out. You said it's on Netflix?
It's all 4 seasons are on Netflix. It's like 13 episodes a season. You can rip through it in like 2 weeks.
Nice. My number 4 is the crime drama I was talking about earlier. Very, very popular show. Some people might call it overrated. Had a very controversial ending, but I really thoroughly enjoyed the beginning of it through the middle of it, and that is The Sopranos. That same year I spent away from home, when we weren't watching ER, we were watching The Sopranos, and I think the final season they split into 2 DVD sets, and I think we got that while we were there, and it was a lot of fun to watch that. Ridiculous, again, over the top. You know, you're dealing with mobsters, mafia, organized crime. You're watching this family that is, you know, dedicated to the cause, dedicated to each other, but they hate each other and they hate the cause, and it was just so much fun to watch. A lot of like situations that became funny, but it was never meant to be funny. And yeah, The Sopranos. Did you ever watch it?
No, it's on my list. But it's along with The Wire as far as classic HBO. But yeah, I've never actually watched Sopranos.
Check it out. Like I said, controversial ending, but not too bad of a first 2 acts if you're going to consider seasons and shows as having acts. But it was pretty decent, man. Check it out. Let's go ahead and continue on. What's your number 3?
My number 3, of which I have my VHS copies of from Hawkins Video Store, Stranger Things 1 and 2. Which, I mean, season 1 and 2. And no, the series isn't over, but it's a hell of a series if you haven't seen it. It's this 80s nostalgia. Looks like if you don't know your history and you stumble upon it, it's on Netflix, obviously, you will think it's a lost Spielberg video. Like, it's very Jurassic Park and Jaws and that kind of stuff in the first season. Almost more Aliens in the second season with more of a Cameron feel. But, I mean, it introduced us all to David Harbour, who's going to play Hellboy. And Eleven, who's going to be Bobby Millie Brown, who's going to be in Godzilla King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong. So, you know, I mean, you've heard of it, obviously, if you're watching this. It's a very iconic recent show, and can't recommend it enough. The second season is almost the Empire Strikes Back of seasons, and that's even better than the first, most would say.
It's the reason Sony is going with a young team of Ghostbusters.
That and
for
it.
This sequel. Yeah, it as well. Yeah, they're definitely. I don't know, not to get too far off subject, but I think Sony kind of missed the mark And you've mentioned before in conversations on Slack with the rest of us there at LRM that you I think it was you said you don't think they can catch lightning in a bottle twice. That Ghostbusters was a unique thing that was once in a life. That was you, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So either way, I still think their correction from what they think was wrong with the 2016 is, in my opinion, not the right correction. I'm not looking forward to 80-pound kids carrying 40-pound proton packs. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. All right, so we're getting to my number 3, which is actually the first sci-fi geek show that I've got on my list, and it is the reimagining of Battlestar Galactica from Ronald Moore, who's actually involved in some Star Trek stuff. I think he also wrote First Contact, which is one of the few Next Generation movies I actually liked from Star Trek.
The best.
So yeah, you think it's the best
of the Next Gen.
Next Generation, yeah. It was pretty cool. I believe Ronald Moore was involved on that one. I think he was a writer. But Battlestar Galactica was great. It was a serious drama that just so happened to take place in space. You could have taken the same story and done Western movement and having, settlers being hunted down by Native Americans or whatever the case may be. You could have had criminals on the run. You could have had Native Americans being hunted down by white settlers. I mean, there's any way you could have told the same story with the drama that was there, but it just so happened to be reimagined from Battlestar Galactica off of the 1980s. Very cool. Some of the changes that they took about some of the earliest gender swapping. Both the characters of Boomer and Starbuck were males back in the 70s, 80s, and they were both made female in this show. There was race changing, and I don't really remember, this is back in 2003, and then I think the series really kicked off in 2005 because the miniseries was so popular. Sci-Fi actually greenlit it and said, go with it. I don't really remember that much bitching and complaining about the swaps, but maybe that's because they changed the show so much. Maybe not. Maybe there was as much bitching and complaining. I really didn't hang out on message boards back in my my late high school years, early post high school years. I had other pressing issues than hanging out on message boards. But no offense to those that did. Good for you guys. But yeah, Battlestar Galactica, great show. Did you ever give it a shot?
Haven't seen it, and that's probably one I wouldn't go back and rewatch because I'm sure the special effects are very dated at this point.
I mean, the
CGI,
TV
special effects,
it's dated. No, not too bad actually. They pumped some money into it, and they created some decent models for like the ships and stuff. They have a decent amount of practical effects. Give it a shot, man. Check out the miniseries.
I'll add to the list.
It's good. So let's go ahead and continue on with your number 2.
I'm realizing that my list has a lot of geek shows that are kind of honored by geeks, but none of mine are really sci-fi like yours, with the exception of Stranger Things. Yeah, because I have next is Breaking Bad. Oh, what a series. I used to joke that when that and Mad Men were on TV at the same time, that Mad Men was a show about nothing and Breaking Bad is a show about everything. Like, this first season's kind of slow, but then it just goes off the rails in a good way, and it never feels... Like, most of my shows are based in realism, really, whether true stories or... like, there's nothing extraordinary about it in a way where, like, aliens show up. But, like, yeah, it's over the top with violence and the drug cartel and stuff like that. And obviously, it gave the world a more famous version of Bryan Cranston, which has benefited us all, and made Jesse Pinkman, which is the character name. Oh, come on, everyone knows who I'm talking. Aaron Paul, it made him the star too. So, yeah, great series, so classic. And yeah, it's strong from the beginning to end.
It's one of those shows that was kind of like a Prison Break that had this really great premise that you would have thought would really have limited the amount of seasons. And then somehow, some way, they managed to make it go further than it should. But like you said, a beloved show, a show that's watched the world over by geeks and non-geeks, fanboys, fangirls, and non-fanboys, fangirls alike. And yeah, man, Bryan Cranston, he really ate it up in that show, man, in a good way. I mean, in a good way. So,
especially since he was best known for Malcolm in the Middle before that. It's quite a change in role.
Definitely. But good. Absolutely fine with me, man. I'm down with it. I like people breaking out of their comfort zone.
Oh yeah.
So that brings us to my number 2, and my top 2 are kind of in the same vein of each other, and they're very, very recent. but I have to give it to Punisher, simply because of Punisher season 2. I have no choice. One of the best shows made, one of the best seasons of any show ever made. And while season 1 was great, it definitely elevated this show in my mind in the history of drama on television, away from the big screen. I can't say enough about the portrayal by John Bernthal. I cannot say enough about the villains. I mean,
Russo.
Russo. On both seasons, you know, he has a completely different character as Jigsaw in season 2 than season 1. But the supporting cast, the direction, the cinematography, everything about Punisher is great. And both seasons offer a lot of great drama, a lot of great stress and anxiety, and I absolutely loved it. So yeah, number 2 for me is The Punisher.
If I had finished season 2, it may have been on my list, but I'm still working my way through it.
Finished it yet?
Yeah.
Oh man, me and my wife, we just sat down and like destroyed it. Once my son went to bed, once our son went to bed, it was
good
like,
idea.
Punisher, go for it. Yeah, he knows who the Punisher is by like comic book images, but not from seeing anything. Before we get to our number ones, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you guys hit the bell so you can be alerted whenever we post new content to the YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out the LRM Ranks It podcast, which hits on Wednesdays, where we get to go much deeper into the lists that we're discussing. Make sure you guys also check out all the great content on LRMonline.com, the Cantina, Breaking Geek from Nick Dahl. It's all great. Make sure you guys share us with your friends and family. Without further ado, Nick, go ahead and hit us with your number 1 favorite TV drama.
One I would have left off because I didn't think of it, but I discussed it with my roommate yesterday at a brewery. Sherlock. Great Sherlock Holmes. Again, like, not realistic, like, not based on real life, but based on a classic character, updated for today. It's just a fascinating show. The Moriarty actor is definitely not the way I would have gone with Moriarty, but I see their version, I'm like, that's way better. Again, it elevated the careers of Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, even though Martin Freeman had some big roles before that. Again, like a big gift, especially since they're both in the MCU at this point. And Doctor Strange is one of the best. But yeah, just so smartly written. Like, the way they imagine him visioning stuff is completely different than the Sherlock Holmes Robert Downey Jr. version, but just as cool. And yeah, and of course he's a giant asshole, which is every Sherlock archetype. So, yeah, perfect show. So that's why it's my number 1. It's a perfect show.
Very cool. That one's only got like 3 or 4 episodes per season, right?
Yeah, but they're all feature length. Yeah. Like, they're all like an hour and a half.
They're long. Yeah. Very cool. Who doesn't like Benedict Cumberbatch, as Kevin Smith likes to call him, on some things I've seen. So I told you guys what, my top 2 were kind of in the same vein as each other, so I'm pretty certain you guys figured out that my number 1 is Netflix's and Marvel's Daredevil.
Yeah.
If you got 3 seasons to tell a story, and that's it, they did it beautifully. They did it wonderfully. They did it perfectly. Each season has some highs and lows, of course. You got growing pains to the first season, and you've got some story elements that weren't quite necessarily the best in season 2, but
except for Punisher,
definitely better. Except for, well, I actually like the Elektra stuff too. I thought that was actually pretty decent. And then season 3 was just a knock out of the park home run. Bravo to the showrunners and everybody involved on Daredevil. Again, great drama, great story, great characters. Season 3, a lot of people think that's the best out of anything Marvel and Netflix have ever done. I know we got news fairly recently, within the last couple weeks, by the time this episode airs, that Hulu is open to bringing those Netflix characters to them. But I know because of contracts, it'll be at least, 2 years? I think is the contract for everybody except for Punisher, because he was kind of different when they negotiated. But hey, I can wait 2 years to get those characters back. Not too bad. What'd you think of Daredevil?
Oh, I love it. It almost made the list too. I think season 3 in a way feels like Infinity War to me, where it's like all this build up pays off so huge with Fisk and Daredevil, and even adding Poindexter.
Bullseye.
Like, it's fantastic.
And having him in the Daredevil costume,
what was that?
To, fuck with having Bullseye in the Daredevil costume to fuck with public opinion was a great story element.
I won't spoil the final fight, but it's one of the best final fights on Netflix or a superhero show. It's extraordinary. And I will say before we end and before you wrap it up that we are both terrible geeks or fanboys or whatever. Because, yeah, we didn't include Game of Thrones. Neither of us.
No,
so
Game of
suck
Thrones.
it.
No. Fuck Game of Thrones. You know? Fuck Game of Thrones. I'm going to say it. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Before you guys send all that hate mail, I'm joking. Game of Thrones is a fine show. I'm not a big fantasy guy. I like it well enough, but I'm not a huge fan of it. So it's not on my list. Just like you'll probably never see me participate in a top 3 or 5 fantasy movies or TV shows.
Same, Z.
LRM ranks it. It's not my cup of tea, but Game of Thrones is fine. My wife is a big fan, and she is super excited to see it. I know a lot of you guys out there are looking forward to reviews and news pieces and articles on reactions to the show as it comes out week by week, starting in August, right?
I don't know. I have no idea.
August. Or is it April? It starts with an A. Whatever. Anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Nick, appreciate you coming on again, man.
Of course.
You guys, make sure you tune in every Tuesday for LRM Ranks It, Wednesday for the podcasts. Again, make sure you guys leave us some comments, hit that thumbs up, all that good stuff so we can know what type of things that you want to see. Tell us what's on your list for your favorite TV dramas, and we'll see you guys on the podcast in like 24 hours.
Yes,
Have
sir.
a good one.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. Did you like what you just watched? Do you want to see more? Check out the other great videos available here on the LRM Online YouTube channel. Also, go check out our website, lrmonline.com, to see all the great stories that we publish every day.